Happy full moon, everyone. This is Kristen here. Here to bring a message to you about this full moon, where the sun is, and to talk about some of the um, potential feelings that we might be feeling. And I can just share from my personal experience, and um, I usually feel that that's pretty tapped into what's happening in the collective. So maybe it resonates for you. Take what does and discard discard the rest. It doesn't all have to be a perfect match. We really are such individual, unique constructs of the one creation. And we take life force energy and interpret things very differently through our systems because we're unique. We have each unique thumbprints, and our astrological birth charts, our natal charts are each very unique and very aspected to be individualized and for you. There is no snowflake that is a replicate of the other, right? There's always very subtle, if not fractal, variation to the whole. So even though there's a lot of similarities and shared experience, because we are vibrating in this reality together, the way we interpret and the way we create are unique expressions. So anyway, all that being said, that hopefully the words connect to you in some way, or at least just the conversation feels like it's a friend that's supporting you in exploring the depth of your soul. If you're not, it's time to go a little bit deeper. If you're just taking things at face value and seeing life only in the framework of linear time, that it's only about birth, consumption, death, it's a pretty flat screen, a pretty flat way of perceiving reality. And what I bring to you is an offering of seeing things in a more quantum level, in a more fractal way, where the spectrum of light, the spectrum of color becomes grander, more vivid, where we turn on the senses and experience things in a deeper, more delicious way, hopefully. It's not always delicious. Sometimes the depth takes us into the dark night of the soul, but only for rebirth. And it's that continual cycle of death and rebirth, life, death, rebirth, cycling over and over again within one lifespan to master the process of our existence, so that in that final transition of death, that we may transition with ease and grace and not feel fear and not hold on so tight to this realm, but allow the transition to be one of expansion and union, right? And if we can bridge that union of spirit into our life and bringing our life up into spirit, the more we experience the present moment and can feel the gratitude for the miracle of life. And the grandness comes through perceiving the moment and all of its aspects of creation as being perfectly placed and perfect as they are. It's only our mind that wants to control and create things to be other than what they are. And that can create a lot of discomfort in our mind and our psyche. And not to say that things don't need to change and actions don't need to be taken, because for sure they do. Yet things don't have to be so much conflict. They can be appreciated as they are. And as you drop into more self-knowing, as we drop into more self-knowing, we know what we resonate with and what we don't. And that's the deeper wisdom, intuitive guidance. Even though mentally we wish it could be another way, intuitively, the resonance, the field of resonance, brings us into our soul that connects to our spirit, and the I am presence that is aligned with the cosmic trajectory of your created being. And it's within this life, and it's beyond this life. So all of that being said, the sun has moved into Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's an earthly loving time. Earthly love invites the sensory palate to become appreciated, and it's that appreciation of the food and nourishing the body, taking time now to, set new plans for your diet and how and what you're consuming, and maybe where there's mineral and vitamin deficiencies, and researching how to bring that into balance through nutrition, through food, maybe supplementation if it's needed, if there's a real deficiency. But to really come into physical appreciation for the body, and to embrace the physical being as a temple of love, and to cleanse it and nourish it and love it in the way that you so desire to be taken care of the self in that way. This is a time for assessing resources. It is tax time, right? So it's a big kind of stressful time for many of us. But when all of that's kind of swept away and done, it's like the rebuilding, reconstructing what can be, simplified in certain ways, that there's like excesses that are actually bringing imbalance to the financial structures, or just bringing that added stress, right? I mean, maybe it's like going out for coffee once a week instead of every day, multiple times a day. Maybe, work that French press at home, or whatever it might be. But just working with the finances and setting new financial goals. If you're spending more time at work to make this top dollar thing, but your health is suffering because of it, maybe it's time to recalibrate that and prioritize your health and happiness over that top dollar. What are our concepts of abundance? Is it just financial resource accumulation and that retirement fund, which is important to be planning for, if we're not already? It is, there is that like balance of, the trajectory of planning for the future, but not being so caught up in the financial piece of that, because step by step, as we lay those foundational pieces, it's like, boom, there goes our lifespan, and we've only been focusing on accumulating wealth and resources, but haven't focused on health. And then you get to retirement, and the money's all there, but the health isn't, so you have to spend all the money on recovery. So it's that, it's really, what is abundance, and really designing that infrastructure to support that vision of what abundance is. Abundance is time, abundance is resources, abundance is health, abundance is relationships, and abundance is personal space. And what is abundance for you? It's so many things. Maybe it's flowers, maybe it's, just having a fresh vase of flowers that you grow yourself, or it can be so many things, simple and big. So there's no limit, and there's no, bottom level either, and there's no real hierarchy, but it's like this holistic vision of loving your earthly life, and designing how that feels, looks, tastes, touches, the sounds, the resonance, the smells you want. How do you want it in its essence to be experienced, and design it. Sun and Taurus, that's what it means to me. The full moon on Sunday is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is taxes, and it is death, it is going into this kind of the deep waters of our subconscious. It's ruled by Pluto, co-ruled by Mars and Pluto, but the modern ruler is Pluto, and it is that subconscious pulling up, letting what is underneath the deep waters to be pulled up from the shadows, to be processed and to bring into the light of the consciousness, so there can be an alchemical transformation. And this is the process of death. It's the death cycle. It's the cutting away of fear, the cutting away of what no longer serves. And we experience a lot of moments in this lifetime of fear, and the power of fear. Fear is definitely something we deal with in this realm. It is a very powerful force, and we need to be very aware of its presence in our consciousness and our subconsciousness, and how it limits our perception of reality, and that it keeps us very dimensionally locked into linear thinking, into right and wrong and duality, into good and bad, guilt and pleasure, like these dichotomies where we feel entrapment, and it's mental entrapment. Fear is in the mind, and the mind rules the ego. And these are very real things that we deal with in this life. And Scorpio, the full moon Scorpio, is bringing light to those dimensions of darkness in our subconscious, in the recesses. And it's not to be feared. Every particle of this realm comes from the same source of creation. And it's all a part of it, and anything that we see, experience, it needs to be brought into the light to be loved and returned home. And this is a very powerful practice, because sometimes we're like, oh, we don't want to dredge that up. It's too painful. That trauma was way too intense, and I just want to keep that under lock and key. But this is really not a time to shove in and under. It's a time for things to come up and out, so that we can really release these heavier energies attached to our psyche, attached to our earthly dimension. to release them and become lighter in our beings. Release them so they can return home to where they were created, so they can remember their wholeness. And I'm speaking to them as like people, or as like persons, as having an identity. This is frequency, it's vibration, and these are things that Scorpio, the energy of Scorpio, can really go in deep and pull out some of the heavier matter. And it does have weight, you know. Feels like, you know, a backpack with rocks in it. You know, or that image of like the cross on the back, you know, the heavy weight of like life and living, that martyring energy that comes from that. We're really wanting to, you know, utilize this full moon in Scorpio to like pull out, release, cut, and like send those things no longer serving you home, and not being scared of that process, but actually loving yourself and loving the things that are released, because it's what everything needs, is just that loving support to return to the best possible potential and outcome. And we're all trying to remember who we are and wanting that love and acknowledgement that we exist. You know, maybe that's all some of the negative energies in our psyches, and you know, these challenges we're faced with in our life. Everything just wants to be loved and acknowledged and, you know, appreciated, sent on its way, you know, to return home. So anyway, full moon in Scorpio, sun in Taurus. There's so many other aspects to talk about, but we can keep that in its simplest form. Taurus and Scorpio are a polarity point on the zodiac. Taurus is over here in the month after spring starts, and Scorpio's over there in the month after Libra starts, you know, in that fall time for us in the northern hemisphere. So it's like the month after spring starts and the month after fall starts. It's that polarity point. And they're really working together to release what's no longer serving so that we can rebuild new infrastructure that's really going to vibrate and resonate to a whole nother quantum level of pure potential. Okay, so I hope this helps, and thank you so much for liking and subscribing. If you want a personal session and to work with me in this quantum visionary level, email me kmbecher, BECHER @gmail.com. I'll have it also written below in the comments. Okay, take very good care, and thank you so much for tuning in. Until the next time on the new moon, be well.